Hi, for my court case, I did the RG and GR Harris Funeral Homes Incorporated versus EEOC and Amy Steffens. In this court case, we see that Amy Steffens is unlawfully terminated through her employer, Harris Funeral Homes, for not conforming to her gender at birth roles of male, and that she saw her true gender identity as female. So while she was transitioning, her employers didn't see that met up to their standards and had terminated her. And EEOC had confirmed that this was in violation of Title VII. With Title VII, that is a law that protects a person from termination of their employer based off of sexual orientation, gender identity, and also how they shouldn't be acting too feminine or too masculine at work to keep the job. So in John's Birch viewpoint with Harris Funeral Homes, he mentioned that treating men and women equally just doesn't mean employers have to treat men as women. That is because sex and transgender statuses are independent concepts. While David D. Cole had mentioned that it discriminated against her because of her sex for three reasons. First, in firing her for failing to conform to its owners explicitly stating stereotypes about how men and women should behave. It discriminated her in the same way that Price Waterhouse discriminated against Ann Hopkins for failing to walk and talk more femininely. And what happened in that court case was that Ann Hopkins had won that argument in that court case because of Price Waterhouse discriminating her for not acting feminine enough, and that was in violation of Title VII. So when we look at Title VII, David's other viewpoint is that the purpose of Title VII, as the court defined it, was to make sex irrelevant to the people's ability to succeed at work. While when we look at John's point of view with Harris Funeral Homes, he had mentioned that Title VII only protects genders at birth, not genders in transition or beliefs. So his beliefs were that it will only protect someone on their assigned at birth from being discriminated by their employer, not their beliefs for if they were transitioning or they're not sure of their true gender identity. And so what happened was John also mentioned some points that if Title VII was to change, then from here would cause a discomfort within society for women to have to deal with men transitioning to women to use the same facilities as them. So that was another big point that John had mentioned that the court had listened to for a good minute. A court case that is relevant to this situation was the Bostick versus Clayton. Gerald Bostick is a gay man who worked in Clayton County for 10 years. Around 2013, he did join a gay recreational softball league, and what happened from there was that people were beginning to question his choices and his sexual orientation, that even at work, his employer had begun to notice this, and coworkers began to leave nasty remarks to him, and later on he ended up getting terminated for his sexual orientation. In this court case, Supreme Court confirmed that Title VII now definitively joins these statutes in prohibiting forms of discrimination based on sex, including discrimination based on the traits like sexual orientation and gender identity that cannot be separated from an individual's sex. For the interest groups involved in this court case in support of Harris Funeral Homes, we had the Women's Liberation Front. The Women's Liberation Front, they were very similar to John's viewpoints on how it would become a discomfort for women having to share a public facility with men transitioning to female, and that could raise violence within society. Although with American Medical Association, who was on the sides of EEOC and Amy Steffens, they had mentioned that when transgender individuals are discriminated at work, they claim it can lead to psychological distress and health disparities between transgender and even cisgender people. When I looked up surveys for this, I did find a poll from 2020 SCOTUS poll, and this was a survey of 2,000 people with a margin error of 2.2%. And so in this survey, 2,000 people were taking a poll if it should be legal or illegal for employees to be fired based on being transgender, and 78.8% agreed that transgenders shouldn't be fired, while 21.2% had agreed that they should be fired. So what could have been done to prevent this court case would be that progressives, they like to see change for the greater good in the society, while conservatives like to protect the good things of the world. Progressives can remind conservatives that the LGBT are the good things in the world worth protecting like the rest of the American citizens. The right side can remind the left side that equality is important and that community is based on morals. The left side can agree with that as well and ask the right side by limiting opportunities of trans and individual and rights in the workplace, is that truly the part of their views of equality and as well as good community based on morals?